Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome, everybody, to another episode. Yes, another episode of Positive Talk Radio, or Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. I can't remember exactly who I am or what I'm doing here, but I'm here because we've got a great guest for you today who is working with veterans and is really dedicated his life to just doing some great stuff. And he's brought to us by a gentleman by the name of John Verico. You know him, you love him, and he's right here. John, how are you?
To know me is to love me.
That's right. All of you, and there's so much there to love.
Oh, yeah. Well, ever since I became this double X Adonis, there's even more of me to love.
Exactly.
Kevin, it's always great when I get to co-host with you, and it becoming more and more regular, and I love it. And especially when we have an opportunity to bring on guests like we have today. This guy is very special to me because he does some work for veterans. Being a veteran myself, it's just his heart is just something that the world is going to fall in love with as well. So let's bring on Eric Ranks. He is the founder of the Veterans Connection, as well as 22 Salute, and he'll be able to tell us all about that. Eric, so great to see you again.
Likewise. Thank you, Kevin and John, for having me on the show. It is beyond an honor.
22 Salute. I'm really interested in that because, well, you'll need to explain to our audience exactly what that is. I think you can go to your local store, hopefully in some areas, and find it there. And tell us about well, I guess tell us about you and all the things you do. We'll get into 22 Salute in a little bit. But where did you come up with this? I know you're a veteran and you're dedicated to helping veterans get through the problems that they have readjusting to society and the things that come with that. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Appreciate it. So first, just to correct the record a little bit. So I personally am not a veteran. But I'm a Air Force brat. So my dad served in the Air Force. He started in the Army during Vietnam and then transferred to Air Force after Vietnam.
Can I make a slight correction to your correction?
Absolutely.
You spent your entire life in the military. So you know, because you were a military brat, then you had to go to the different bases and you had to go to different schools and you had to learn new things and meet new people and all that kind of stuff. So I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you. I mean, that's definitely true. So this is a crazy thing to think about from what most people's experiences is. I went to 5 high schools in 4 years.
So you were always the new kid.
I was always a new kid. So yeah. So
but so true what Kevin said, just to tack on to that, a veteran's family is just as much of a veteran.
And I don't disagree with that, but there are a lot of people out there that if you're not very clear about that, then they think you're stealing valor. And I'm not here to steal valor.
Yeah, like, no, absolutely not.
That's not my thing. That's why I wanted to set the record, is those people that are like, there are people who do not consider the family members as serving, but I am one that actually does consider it because I know what so many families go through, especially the ones, like our Gold Star families and things like that. Like, think about those ones that have lost loved ones and kids that, their parents are serving overseas and they lose. This actually really does happen. So people come back and their kids don't accept them because there's been that disconnect and that bond has broken away. One of the things the Veterans Connection worked on in the very beginning when we started that was to partner with Disney and places like that so that we could send vets and their families on a vacation to try to reconnect after that, because that bond does get disconnected. So there are a lot of things when it comes to families as a whole serving that a lot of people don't think about.
And those separations, while the service member is overseas serving, especially during wartime, they can be really, really long periods of time. When I was in the Navy, and it was mostly peacetime for most of the time when I was on the ship, although we did have some issues. But I mean, I was gone for 6 to 8 months at a clip, and that's a short tour compared to what some people do when they're actually, you know, in the warfront area. And so for families to adjust to that, and especially for children who they don't get to see dad or even mom for long periods of time, that person who walks in the door in uniform at the end of a tour, when they come back, they're a complete stranger because so much has happened in their lifetime while they were away.
Yep. Yeah. It's the younger they are, the harder when they leave, the harder it is when they come back. You know, everybody sees these pretty touchy-feely videos like on Instagram and TikTok and stuff of the military person coming back home and the kid like crying and thanking, but it's not always that way.
Yeah.
Well,
it was.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say real quick, back in the mid 80s, the Navy still allowed beards. And so when then in January 1, 1985, they said no more beards because the Navy finally realized that gas mask won't seal on a beard. So all of these dads, because that's where it was mostly at the time, who went away on a ship for 6 to 8 months and they were gone and they left with a beard and they came home and they had no beards and their families didn't recognize them. And I remember my fiance at the time being on the pier and along with a bunch of other wives and all this other stuff, going and waving onto the ship, going, oh, there he is. No, over there. No, they didn't recognize their own, you know, spouse or whatever. And the kids were just completely dumbfounded. Like, who is this guy? He doesn't have his beard. And they didn't even recognize their own father. In this particular case was obviously.
And your work is so important for the families because a lot of times guys go and they're deployed for a length of time, especially if it's in wartime or they're in a battle zone, and they come back fundamentally changed. And so they don't really remember. The kids don't really remember who they think they remember who they were, but now they're not who they thought they were because of the problems that they went through. So that it's and the relationship between husband and wife, it can be fundamentally different as well.
Yeah, the Veterans Connection does. It's really interesting because we actually only do it for one group. We offer equine therapy, but we only offer it for the couple. And it's because there's some really powerful things that can be done with helping a husband and wife. Because a lot of times it's like the trauma that has happened in whoever's serving their life when they come back, that starts creating really contentious situations within the bonds of a couple. And a horse therapy is really powerful at helping them work through that. And we have the only, well, one of the only centers in the country that we work with that can actually do EMDR, which is light therapy for trauma, while they're on the back of a horse. So you get two therapies in one. Super powerful.
Oh, that's awesome. How many horses do you have there?
I don't have the horses. We work with a facility in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Ah, very good. And
I wish I had horses, but
now explain to us, to our audience, what equestrian therapy is and how it helps couples.
Yeah, so equine therapy, you know, it's animals put, like, you have to build a trust and a bond with an animal. An animal brings calmness, which is also why PTSD service dogs work really well, is because, you know, not only can they recognize when someone's going through an episode, a service dog, but they also bring a calming nature. They also make you have a purpose because you have to take care of this dog. So those are both like have some similarities, but horses, like when you think of equine therapy, it's not you jumping on a horse and galloping around really fast. Like it's a calm, like walking around the arena with them, like touching the horse, like feeling the emotional connection, like things like that really start building and processing, trauma that comes out as you start opening up those feelings between building the bond with the horse and with each other and things like that. So it's not, we're we're not on Yellowstone and we're jumping on a horse and galloping down, through the pasture. It doesn't work like that in the way of the therapeutic side of it.
Oh, really good. Now I wanted to insert this, if I could, just for everybody's knowledge. And that is because I drove a bus for 12 years. So I got real acquainted with the ADA, which is the American Disabilities Act. A service animal is not just for people who are physically impaired. It is also has a mental approach to it. So please, if you see somebody that has a service dog and it says, they wear a little saddle, it says service dog. If you don't pet them, don't walk up to them. They're there, they're working when they're doing that. And it doesn't, just because they may not appear to be infirmed from the outside, that doesn't mean they don't have PTSD or some other thing that the service dog is there to help them with. So please just mind your own business in that case. Is that good advice?
No, that's really good advice. And I'd either leave them alone, like both of them alone, or if the person seems like they're in a comfort zone and they're interacting with people, you can ask permission. Hey, is it okay if I pet your dog? But if it's working, it's probably no. So don't be offended if they say no. But I have seen cases where someone's like, yeah, it's okay. But like you said, you don't know where their mind is. And so approaching them could trigger something. And so I would be clear as much as you can of that.
Good. John?
Really great advice. That's really great advice. And I know folks who both people who have disabilities that have a service animal, and then I also know people who have an emotional support animal, which still basically is the same thing. They're there, and that animal is there for working purposes and to provide that emotional and mental support, as well as whatever they do on a physical level. It's just the whole concept of equine therapy has been fascinating to me. I'm learning a lot about it recently. There's actually a farm here near where I live in Pennsylvania that does equine therapy, and I'm learning so much about it. And I didn't realize so much about horses in the past, but that was also one of the things that fascinated me about among the litany of things that you do through the Veterans Connection, that this is just one of many services that you provide to help families and to help veterans kind of get back on a life track when they get back home.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah, so a little bit about, if you don't mind, let me share about why I started the Veteran Connection and kind of what it's based on.
That's where we're going.
If you don't mind. So, Kevin kind of asked, tell us about you. And we kind of skipped, we jumped into some other things. I never actually answered that.
It's kind of how we work here.
Yeah. And I'm good with that. Free flow. That's all that people want authenticity, and free flow brings authenticity. So
we've always said this was a completely unscripted, unorganized event, this whole thing, but that's what makes it great, because we have authentic conversations. So please, Eric.
Yeah. So I already mentioned that I was a military brat. And I, to be honest, John may know, I don't actually know where the word brat came from, but anyways, that's what we call military children. But at 5 years old, I was diagnosed with leukemia, and then as I grew up, I went through a lot of personal mental health struggles. There was multiple times that I was suicidal. Tried to take my life a couple of times, and by the grace of God, God was looking out for me, and or whatever higher being you believe in. I call mine God. Someone always walked in the middle of me doing what I was doing, and at the time I was pissed off because I was ready to end things. But now I'm grateful. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better blessing in my life, and I just continued dealing with, just physical and mental pain. And you look, and then I got down to like 2009, 2010, 2011, like those type of time frames. I was a regional manager for AT&T Wireless. I was over 3 locations for them. And I had some people come back from Iraq and Afghanistan with super bad PTSD issues. And the military was always really personal to me because I grew up in it. And even when my dad transitioned out, my favorite thing to this day, going to air shows on the Air Force Base and things like that. And they just weren't getting the help, and their career became lousy employees, transparently. And their marriages were falling apart. And I was just watching this, and I was trying to help the best I could as an employer / friend / like, how do I help this person? And I knew that I didn't understand what they were going through because I didn't go serve on that battle line, but I did understand physical and mental pain. And so I left corporate America and started the Veterans Connection in 2012. And when I first started it, the goal was to cut through the administrative red tape for veterans to get access to the benefits that were due to them, which most people think, oh, they served, they get all these benefits when they get home. Not even close to the case. Like, you gotta hire attorneys. It takes years. You may have to be re-rated a few times on, how disabled you are from the military. Like, when they're rating you, they'll ask you trick questions, like they'll ask you just simple questions like, how are you doing today? Knowing that, oh, today's a pretty good day. I'm going to say I'm doing well. Well, they're going to mark that down. Oh, they're doing well. Like, now you just ruined your rating, even though you probably aren't doing well day to day. Like, there's just things like that people, so that was our initial goal is, okay, these people aren't getting help. How do we cut through and help these people get help? And then we realized, okay, the VA is great at giving certain things like a wheelchair, but they didn't offer ramps for the house, lifts for the vehicles, widening the doorways to get the wheelchair in the door. And so we started realizing there's also these other things that people need that people don't even realize that they like just these things that the VA is not giving access to. And it was compounded in my mind. And this may sound crazy. It was compounded in my mind. This is 2011, 2012, that I had a really good friend older than me that served in Vietnam. And he had Agent Orange issues. And his legs would constantly split open, bleed, pus out. He'd have to get surgeries over and over. 2011, 2012, the VA still did not recognize Agent Orange. Vietnam was how many years before that?
Right.
1975 is when the war ended. So Agent Orange was there from in the middle 60s all the way through the end of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was like, there's got to be change. And then the pandemic happened, and that made me like that changed. We couldn't do as many in-person things to help vets, and so I had some extra time on my hands and started seeing the rising suicide rates and in the veteran community. And they were like during COVID. I mean, they're still going up, but during COVID, there was a dramatic jump. And so then I went to my board and said, hey, we got to refocus this nonprofit. Like, it's great what we're doing, but we've got to get rid of these suicide rates. And so I changed the whole focus to a nonprofit that's focused on a whole holistic approach to veteran mental health. And so John mentioned all the things that we do. And so I'm just going to mention our 4 pillars. I won't go into detail so that we can continue conversations outside of this, but our 4 pillars that create the whole holistic approach. Our first one's connection. Like, you got to rebuild the brotherhood, sisterhood bond people lose when they transition. You got to help people not self-isolate because they feel like others around them don't understand what they're dealing with. You've got to help that family and marriage connection, the children and spouse connection. Like, when people commit suicide, 80-90% of them are suffering in silence, and you think they're doing well and they're gone tomorrow. That connection is the difference of them being here today or tomorrow. So that was our first pillar. The second one we launched was empower, and that's still kept. How do we make sure people are getting access to their benefits? So that's housing, food. We added veteran childcare because I had a husband and wife that served. The husband was super suicidal. She couldn't take him to the hospital because she had to watch the children. And so I was like, oh, we got to have childcare. So we added childcare. So we started adding all things when I said, hey, if I can solve pillar 1 and 2, I can get someone out of fight or flight mode. I can't start the healing journey if they're in fight or flight mode. And so that's why we focus on those 2 first. The third one is align, and that's your alternative things. PTSD service dogs, equine therapy, yoga, tapping, EMDR, like all kinds of natural things that the VA doesn't focus on. And then our 4th one is thrive. Veterans, and we do veterans and first responders, and vets and first responders giving back to each other. Also, we have stuff around credit repair, paying off your mortgage earlier, things like that. So we take a whole holistic approach where most nonprofits will pick one area or another area, or they will not be all inclusive. They'll say, we only serve people who are in this war, or only people who were honorably discharged, and will exempt anyone who, for some reason, because there's multiple reasons people could be dishonorably discharged, and it's not always as black and white as you think. And we also opened up, this is crazy, I actually realized the Veterans Connection, it started at vets and then expanded to first responders. Now it's like anyone who serves. I had somebody who come to me from the CIA and say, hey, I've been turned down from every nonprofit I have looked for the last 6-7 years. I cannot find a single nonprofit that will help me find help me get a PTSD service dog. I served overseas with the military. I was part of I don't know if I can say this person, maybe I can't remember the person's name, but they were part of interrogations that was involved with Osama bin Laden and things like that. Suffering really bad from PTSD. And nobody would touch him because CIA, not military, not first responder. Right. I'm like, you served. Yes, we'll get you a service dog. And we did.
Eric, if we can, Eric, if we can, I need to take a quick break, but this is fascinating. And when we come back, we're going to talk more with Eric Ranks and what he's doing. And I don't know that a lot of people understand what the suicide rate is for veterans in this country today. That number will shock and astound you when we come back, I think. We'll be right back. Are you looking for a powerful way to grow your brand while making a real difference? Well, Positive Talk is the perfect platform to align your message with inspiration, hope, and meaningful conversations. By sponsoring Positive Talk, your brand will reach an engaged audience that values positivity and connection. people who want to support companies that share their values. Take this opportunity to showcase your business in a space that uplifts, inspires, and creates lasting impact. Don't wait. Email me, Kevin@kmmedia.pro today to learn how you can partner with us and spread positivity while growing your brand. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. John, I got to tell you, thank you so much for bringing Eric to us, because we're going to get into some stuff here for a little bit, and then we're going to get it real positive, but we're going to get into some stuff that people need to know.
Well, there is positivity here just in the fact that there's somebody like Eric and the Veterans Connection that are actually providing these services, so that there is, light for folks who are trapped in darkness. And, Eric, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the things that you do through the Veterans Connection, for veterans, for first responders, and for pretty much anyone who is served. And so, in a service capacity. And so, just wanted to say thank you before we go and continue this conversation.
Exactly. And, but I don't want to put you out of work, but this is all stuff that we should be doing for our veterans as part of our national service to them, because of the service they provided to us. But a lot of people, and since we began in 75, we went to a volunteer army. And so all these people have volunteered, and there are many, many, many families who do not know what the military experience is like. And because they weren't drafted into it, and it's a voluntary thing. But some of the kids are so young, and when they get out of it, and they're done with it, they're still young. They're in their mid-20s. You're barely even born, from my perspective, when you're in your mid-20s. But so Eric, just for a point of reference, how many veterans are committing suicide on a daily or weekly basis or monthly?
Yeah, so I'll give you two numbers. I'll give you the artificial Department of Defense number, which is an average of 22 suicides a day, which is where 22 Salute name comes from. And then the real number, which is between 40 to 60 a day. And then first responders is 10 to 15% higher than the general population.
Those are obscene numbers.
Per day.
And those are just obscene. And it's because in our society, we are not looking out after each other in the manner and shape and form that we need to be, I think. And so your service is all that much more important. I just wish that we had that the whole system worked the way your company does, and the way your nonprofit does.
I myself agree. I wish the nonprofit I founded didn't have to exist. I wish I didn't have to watch my friends suffer. I wish, and I also wish more so we could solve this problem easier if more nonprofits were as active as the Veterans Connection is in regards to trying to partner with each other. So there is, I don't know the exact number. It keeps changing every day, but there's probably like 25,000 plus veteran nonprofit organizations, and most of them won't work with each other because they think we're all competing for the same donor dollars.
I was just going to say that they feel like they're competing for limited resources, and they're afraid to get lost in the sauce when they realize that when we work together, we can get so much more accomplished.
Yeah, the only way I can tackle those four pillars is I go out of my way to partner with other organizations, like this equine therapy place in Twin Falls. Like we can't do it all ourselves, but as a collective, we can, and give somebody a trusted resource that they can go and know, okay, if they don't do it themselves, they're going to put me with somebody that we can trust and know that I'm going to get the help they need.
Well, it takes all of us to make it all work. It can't be just one aspect or another. I'm really disappointed that there are veterans groups that they're fighting over dollars, and they're tripping over the for lack of a better term, the bodies of the people that they're supposed to be serving.
Yeah, it's
too bad.
We could go down a whole rabbit hole on that. So
we don't want to do that
on the first half of this.
Well, we'll just say that you have established a model for others to emulate if they would just open their eyes and do so. And maybe through this, through the opportunity of getting some more visibility on this through Positive Talk Radio and our 1.6 million listeners out there, that's a bunch of you out there that need to kind of pony up and listen up and start to look to work together to help to provide the services that are so desperately needed.
And when we come back, we're going to turn this to the positive of the things that you're doing to also generate money that is helping veterans, and also where you see your company going and what's going to happen in the long term. And what is your ultimate, I know what your ultimate goal is, but what do you think that you're going to be able to do to accomplish the ultimate goal of no suicides? Everybody's getting the help that they need, and we can all move forward. So we need to take a quick break. John Verico is with me, and Eric Ranks is our guest. And by the way, again, I have to tell you, I'm so pleased that you're here.
I'm honored to be here. Honestly, this conversation is so important. And the fact that you're giving a platform for people, like, you don't have to look into the Veterans Connection 22 Salute. I would love if you do and support, but at the end of the day, if you could just find a way to help people in your community and save a life, because mental health is a real issue even outside of vets and first responders.
In our country right now, that's so true. That's so true. We will be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. You know, I think I have PTSD because I tried that and she said no continually.
I have never had anybody say I would love to go on a date. But
it's because you were the one texting and driving.
Hey, I'm driving right now, but wanted to send you this question.
No, I thought I hadn't seen that commercial. I thought that was actually, you talk about changing the conversation to more positive. That made me laugh. So you've already done it right there.
Well, the whole idea is that we want to present things on this show that people might not know. And there certainly are things that we can do. Knowledge is power. Once you know that there are anywhere between 22 and 40 veterans dying every day of suicide, that you can get involved. By the way, I want to make sure that everybody has this number. There's a national hotline now that is 988. And it's really easy to get to. It's 988. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling like you've got nowhere to turn, call that number and they will get you the help that you need. So that, because I've had several people in my life commit suicide. They were valuable people. We needed them here, and we didn't need them to do what they did. So I'm hopeful that the people will take that number and use it. 988. And I'm glad that number exists now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on both of my websites. It's on our 22 Salute products. It's everywhere. So,
Eric, can we talk briefly about PTSD and the stigma that goes with that? we had talked in the past about, instead of using post-traumatic stress disorder, using instead what it truly is, which is post-traumatic stress injury. Because when you say somebody has a disorder, it makes it sound like, oh, there's something wrong with them, or they can't be helped. But an injury is something that we can recover from, and an injury, tells us that, hey, it wasn't our fault in the first place. And so I think, if we can change that mindset, we can go in the right direction. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's super important. So John and I were involved with another organization for a short term, and when we were coming together as a group to figure out, what this would look like, I was very big about let's change the wording in this curriculum. Like right now it says PTSD. We need to drop the D, and it's for two reasons. One, it alienates the person who's suffering. It makes, like you just said, feel like there's something wrong with them. And two, they're less likely to seek treatment. And if they know it's an injury and something that can be overcome. Like a disorder is more like, oh, I'm going to have this the rest of my life. Well, no, there's ways you can. Yes, you may have it for the rest of your life, and you may not. Like their trauma is different, but there are ways you can manage it, and the ways to manage it aren't always pharmaceutical. In fact, in my opinion, in most cases, outside of stabilization phase, because some people do need a stabilization phase, pharmaceuticals can play a role in that. Once they're stabilized, you can wean them off medication with some other alternative things. So I'm not anti-pharmaceutical, but I am anti making that the rest of their life. They just need to be on some drug. But yeah, it's really important. It's an injury. And the other reason why not using PTSD is important is because people think PTSD, you have to have experienced a major trauma. So I saw something in war. I was a firefighter first on scene and saw something blow you on the road. I was a nurse during COVID and saw death after death. Like, those are cases where there can be extreme cases of PTS, but people can have PTS from other things that happen in their life, day-to-day regular people that haven't seen massive trauma. In fact, I know a lot of people, even military, that have PTS that have never served, like never saw war, but there are other things that happened that caused that. And they don't have to people who have served. Like I said, everyday people suffer, and so I think it's really important that we change that stipulation, because also people who are outside of military, first responders, secondary responders, things like that, say, oh, I don't have that. No, you have PTS because it's something else. You just think because it's a disorder, you had to have something major trauma to generate that. So I don't know if that explained it, but
that actually was a beautiful explanation.
Yeah, it was well done.
Because the one thing that I am happy about is that this is coming more to light than it used to be. My uncle was in the military in the late 60s, early 70s, and he had what they called manic depressive tendencies. So he ended up being hospitalized, and he would take barbiturates, and then he would take uppers and downers. That's how they controlled him, and how they
probably put him on lithium.
Yeah, and he ended up walking up I-5 and got hit by 6 cars, and who knows if it was intentional or I don't know, but those sorts of things happen to everybody, and the women in our culture, the statistics are just awful. Of so many people have faced domestic violence, sexual abuse, both men and women in our society, that I think, and tell me what you think about this, I think actually most of us walk around with some form of PTS.
I agree with that. And in our youth, it's escalated with social media and having to be this perfect narrative of what everybody's supposed to look like on social media and be on social media, and bullying physically and cyberly, like, but everybody's experienced something. For me, it's been physical. I mentioned leukemia. I didn't talk about internal bleeding that took 3.5 weeks and 2 hospitals with multiple blood transfusions and stuff. Didn't talk about a ruptured esophagus that has a less than 50% survival rate. Like, just one thing after another that has led to struggles. Well, I didn't see something. I went through something that caused like the PTS. So it also doesn't have to be something you saw. It could just be something you've gone through and experienced yourself.
Yeah, Eric, I've always thought you were a kind of a medical miracle. You have been through so much.
My higher being, he has a purpose for me. I wouldn't be here today if he didn't.
Yeah, and we're so glad that that was recognized and put into effect, and to keep you here with us, because we need people like you, my friend.
I appreciate that.
Well, and there are two things. One is about social media. John and I are here to break the mold of perfect people doing social media, because clearly we ain't that. And the other thing is, you were meant to be here. Everybody's meant to be here. You've got and by the way, you're a successful man. I'm glad that the one thing that you failed at was taking your own life.
Oh, I'm glad too. Like I said, nowadays it's like that was the biggest blessing I could have ever had.
And that, by the way, is something that a lot of people that are in the midst of it, they don't realize that if they just get the help to get through this and continue their life, things will get better. They always get better.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a crazy story. This is when I had finally got myself in a pretty good space. This is late 90s. And I went through a divorce. Her and I separated 1 week from our 1 year anniversary. We just got married too young. We're sort of friends to this day. Like it wasn't a bad separation, but because of everything I went through, it triggered a lot of stuff. But I'd already gotten in a mindset that I wanted to be here. And this is the other side of it. I overdosed on antidepressants trying to get happy. Like I was like, I want to live. An ambulance had to come and take me. I'd have my stomach pumped. I was trying to get happy because I was like, I want to live. Like I don't want to be feeling the way I'm feeling. So there's other sides to that whole spectrum as well.
Talk about swinging the pendulum in the other direction.
Yeah, it's.
Well, you know what's fun about it is now you can laugh at it,
and I do,
because I'm sure the doctors are like, weren't you here last week when you tried? Now you're trying. No, never.
And I want to reframe something that you said, Kevin. You said the one thing Eric failed at, he failed at taking his own life, and I say instead he didn't fail at anything. He succeeded in continuing to live.
I stand corrected, young man. I stand corrected. But I'm glad, in any event, there are lots of people around the country who are glad that you are here because of the impact that you're making on our society in general. And people need to listen to what you have to say.
I appreciate that.
And John, should we take a break now, do you think?
Well, yeah. Why don't we get it done now so that we can spend an uninterrupted time chatting about the 22 salute side of the world?
That sounds like a good idea. You should
maybe we should skip that conversation. Kevin's ahead of me.
I'm already half a pint into that conversation. So we take this break. We'll be right back.
You are all about having a good experience and listening to positive podcasts. Now, when you're online, you can have a positive browsing experience too. Connect to NordVPN server when you go online. NordVPN makes it simple, safe, and secure for you to explore the wide world on the web. Visit NordVPN/positive talk radio. Again, that's NordVPN/positive talk radio to get our 71% discount savings when you visit NordVPN/positive talk radio. You can try it risk-free for 30 days and stay safe while you're online at NordVPN/positive talk radio.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. John Verico is here, which is always a treat for me. Eric Ranks is a buddy of him from the past, and he brought him here, and I'm so grateful that he did. You've got some great things that you are doing, one of which is you are giving back to, well, I'll have you tell it. But first of all, I have to make the disclaimer. Always drink responsibly. Go, Eric.
I mean, I'll make the same disclaimer. But before I get into that, I haven't commented on it, but I have to. John, I love your shirts.
It keeps disappearing is the problem, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's those virtual backgrounds.
Yeah, but it is a great shirt. He brings great shirts. I bring white.
Yeah,
Life's too short to wear a white shirt, Kevin.
I don't wear white because I don't care if I don't even eat something. If I'm wearing white, there's something on that shirt somehow. I don't know.
That's why I wear brightly colored shirts, Eric, because I'm a very sloppy eater, and if you spill something on a shirt that's got a bunch of colors on it, people will notice.
Yeah. So awesome. So 22 Salute. I appreciate that. So 22 Salute. I came up with the idea in 2021. I'm part of a few different military veteran mastermind groups, and one of them, which I'm super honored, I am the only non-serving person that has been invited into that group. Everybody else has to serve, but they made an exemption for me to join the group. I was personally invited in, and it's focused on veteran entrepreneurship. And in that group, there was somebody in the spirits industry, and there was someone in the coffee industry. One was, I think one was Army. I haven't talked to him in a while. I think he's Army. And then the other one is for sure Navy on the coffee side.
Navy coffee.
And and just I said to him, you know what? I've made a decision. I need to create a social enterprise, a for-profit company that could fund the Veterans Connection, because I'm tired of donations going up and down and not knowing month to month how many people I can help. And I could get I'll just use an example. I got a sizable donation from the John Legere Foundation. If people don't know who John Legere is, it's his family foundation. He's the former CEO of T-Mobile. A sizable donation from him. I haven't gotten a second one of those. Now, if I keep soliciting, I probably could. But at the time, I was in active conversation, and he's like, "Yeah, let's do it," because suicide is very personal to him, and so that's the realm of nonprofits. You might get big donations that you'll never get again, or you may get so it's hard. And so I was like, I need to create some kind of social enterprise. And they, of course, because it's in their industry, and they're like, "Hey, have you thought about doing these products for your social enterprise?" And my initial reaction on the alcohol, and I'm telling this alcohol story for a reason. My initial action was no. I said, absolutely not. I'm a mental health organization trying to save lives. Coffee, I'm okay with, but alcohol, absolutely not. Like, alcohol can be a contributor to mental health. And so I walked away from that conversation, and I just thought. And it actually took a couple of months of thinking, and it just kept popping in my head of, am I just pushing on away alcohol too quick? Like, I know it's a gold mine. I know it can make a big impact on my brand. And then it just clicked one day. And I said, I'm an idiot. That's exactly what I need to do. I said, I have a chance to do something no other alcohol brand is doing. I said, I can get in front of somebody in their darkest hour, give them hope with my messaging on my product, and we're the first spirits company to put the suicide crisis line, which you just gave on this podcast line, on our products. I'm like, I'm an idiot. Like, why haven't I done this sooner? And on top of that, I can educate the retail public who has no idea that it's 40 to 60 suicides a day in the veteran community. They just go on with their lives thinking everything's pretty, because people don't want to talk about suicide. That's not a message they want to talk about. And and I was like, so I'm going to take it to the retail shelves. And my hope is, and I know this is anti-business, but my hope is somebody is in that mindset. Don't buy my product or anyone else's. Walk in, see what we represent, call the number, get help, and don't buy mine or anyone else's alcohol. Go get help. Like, I care about a life way more than bringing in $1. There's no amount of money that's worth even one life. And so it became a very interesting thing. So we're a spirits and coffee brand that a portion of our sales goes right into. It started as just the Veterans Connection. Now we donate to several veteran non-profit organizations, and through one of our partnerships, we're even donating to, in addition to what we are already donating to veteran causes, we're donating to 4 or 5 children's hospitals across the country as well. And so our brand is just based on giving back. Like, that's, yes, we have to pay the bills. But at the end of the day, it's paying back. And to tell you how important that was to me, when I first started the company, just being naive, I said, hey, we're going to give a percentage of profits back. And then almost a year in, I was like, we haven't donated anything because we're losing money right now. So I went back and I said, hey guys, because I have other people who started with me. I said, hey, I brought you guys into this. I know you guys agreed to this, but I'm changing it. We are donating a percentage of sales. And I went and retroactive every sale we'd made. So even though we were losing money, I went and pulled money out from what we sold and made sure that money went in to help the cause. And that's how committed I am, is I'd rather not make money and make sure people are being helped.
But the brand is successful today, yes?
We're not break even yet. But that's because of a lot of things. CPG, consumer packaged goods, is a hard industry. There's a couple of things that drive that. One, it takes us on average from when we produce inventory to when we get paid for it 6 to 8 months. We have to pay a lot of money to have people sit in stores and sample our products out. That's not a cheap proposition. It's very expensive, because nobody walks into a store and says, you know what, today I want to try something new. Like, you go in and say, I would never buy this brand. I shouldn't say this, but I would never buy Wonder Bread. But I'm just using an example. No, if someone's going to walk in and say, I always buy Wonder Bread, so I'm going to go pick it up off the shelf. Like, you go shopping for what. There may be some people that are looking for the cheapest price versus a brand, but traditionally you're brand committed. So if you're not paying somebody something for us, it's lips to mouth. If they don't get to try it, they're likely not going to pick it up our shelves, no matter what the cause is. They're going to pick up what they know they like. And so we have to, so if we were not spending so much money on marketing and we could get paid faster, we would be in a better position. Now, we did something this year that will pivot us big time in 2025, which is we started with vodka on the alcohol side, and it's the most oversaturated spirit there is on the market. And our profit margins, because I have to sell it for a lot less, is a lot lower. Now, I invested heavy at the end of the year, this year, at launching a fig vanilla bourbon, the only fig vanilla bourbon I made on the market. And places that we go into and they say, we've got 10 other vodkas, we can't take it. Like, they're all saying yes to the bourbon. So our trajectory is much different going into next year than it was when we were just vodka. And then coffee we do decent on Amazon. But we haven't spent a lot of advertising dollars on it because we're committed to retail. We're probably in about 100 places retail on coffee, but the rest of all of our places are on the spirit side. And you have to, so part of the reason also why we spend so much on demos is if you don't move product quick off a shelf, you're going to get kicked out of that retailer. And we've made ground with some big retailers like Kroger that you normally can't get into unless you have really strong sales data, but they picked us up because of our cause. So thank you, by the way, Kroger, for our veteran community. Like, they didn't care. We actually signed with Kroger before we even produced a single bag of coffee or produce a single spirit. And that doesn't happen. That's
amazing. That's amazing.
They said, we believe in helping our veteran community. So I want to recognize them and then from there you go to other retailers and say, well, Kroger's working with us.
Yeah. I tell you, Eric, I'm really sorry that we're at our time limit for this show. We're going to have you back, but we're going to tell everybody, get out there and go to 22salute.com and check out the spirits and coffee that are available. And go to your local retailer and say, hey, you want to start carrying these brands. You want to get 22 Salute, the only fig vanilla bourbon that's out there on the market. Get that into the communities. And by the way, they have a vodka too. And by the way, there's all these coffees. So definitely check it out. But I definitely wanted to make sure we hit that website, 22salute.com. Before we run out of time on this show. We are out. It's crazy how quickly the time goes when we have these conversations.
And by the way, Eric, you're right. It's the food service industry in general is a very difficult place to place new products. But I think you're brilliant with the bourbon because that is a sipping liquor rather than just an ingredient for a cocktail. So I think you're right on with that one.
I appreciate that. Apparently, I did have a visitor, but I know we're wrapping up. Just to piggyback real quick what John said, at 22salute.com, you can see there's a store locator. You can see where it is available and if it's in your local area. We ship to 47 states direct from our website. Coffee's available on Amazon.com and Walmart.com. And also, you can check out the veteransconnection.org. You can make donations, or if you need help, there's forms to submit to get some resources yourself.
And Eric Ranks has been our guest, and you have a website. You can also go to ericranks.com, right?
I do have a website. Thank you.
And that lists all of his businesses, all the things he's doing. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. John, anything before we go?
No, we unfortunately got to go, but Eric, we have to have you back. We'll talk again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much. It's been Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at kmmedia.pro.